What's up, folks? Sean, the average angler, and today we're going to cover something a little less talked about, I guess, but very important. Okay, and that's braid line. What's the difference? What do I look for? What do I use? I'm not all that brand loyal per se. Sunline, Seeger, Braid, Power Pro, Suffix 832. All right, so I've got lots of different stuff here. So why? Well, different applications, okay? Let's cover the 4 versus 8 first, okay? Most of what I have here is 8-strand braid, but there is a 4-strand braid here. The rest of this is 8-strand. So the difference, 4-strand and 8-strand. 8-strand is going to be more supple, smoother. So this is 20-pound test here. You can see how it kind of lays off my hand. There's nothing wrong with using 4-strand braid. 3,000 yards of 20-pound 4-strand braid. Okay. What I use this for is casting reels. Mostly for top waters, walking baits, popping baits. The reason being is because it's not as flexible limp. If you look at, see how quickly this drops? Kind of straight down, right? It drops much faster. The other one came out a lot further. This, if you're walking a bait aggressively, you can walk it onto the hooks of the bait. So, not saying it can't happen with the 4, but the 4 is a little bit stiffer. It's also less money. So for baits where you can get away with it, if you want to use 4-strand braid, by all means go for it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and this is really interesting because I see it all the time, test ratings, right? And if you go watch some of the line test breakage testing on YouTube, you'll see that just about any braid is substantially higher breaking point than what it's rated. 20, for instance. 20 is probably 30+ pound breaking point. So, what I suggest is pay more attention to line diameter. And I'm going to show you in a minute here. Here's 2 12 pounds, okay? Now we're going to go off of what they state. This states 0.171. 12 pound, same company, Sunline, just a different version, right? 187 versus 171. So this one is quite a bit thinner in the grand scheme of things. The Suffix in a 10 pound, for instance, is thicker than these. .020, 0.008 versus 0.0067. So, when you're rigging, so the 8-strand, most of the 8-strand I have here is for spinning rods up to 20 pound, okay? Anything higher is for casting rods. 30-pound Quattro, I use it for spinner baits, chatterbaits, Most of the time I use fluorocarbon, but I will use that 80-pound J-braid punching at times, and I will spool up a reel with my lure retriever with 80 pound. 65 pound, pretty standard for pitching, punching, and frogging. In the bigger cases, I'm not near as concerned about line diameter as I am smoothness if I'm flipping, because I don't like abrasive line to slide through my fingers when I'm flipping. The Seeger Smackdown and the Max Quattro I got for testing. Okay, I want to be throwing some chatterbaits, spinnerbaits on it, perhaps some topwater. Both are very highly talked about lines, so I wanted to test it. Look for those come in the near future. The main part I wanted to get to today was spinning rods. Okay, let me get this stuff out the way. I have been fishing the Sunline X Plasma Asagi for over a year now. You can look back in my videos way back in the beginning when I started my channel. This was one of the first items that I tried. That and the Beyond Braid. If you haven't seen the Beyond Braid review, it's one of my most watched videos. Probably because they bombard people with social media and all that other kind of stuff. 832's been around forever. It's a very dependable line. This is I believe they call it camo. Yeah. And you'll see on the line colors there, line color changes. So does it make a difference? Yeah, I don't know. It does to me mentally at times, I guess. But not too much if I'm using that, right? Or if I'm using that. So the 20 pound is what I started out using on spinning rods, because really 15 and 20 was kind of the common. I've since figured out, and this isn't talked about very much. That's one of the things that I wished I'd have known sooner, because quite honestly, the thinner your braid, the better it casts. Now, while that may not be important for certain applications, it certainly is when you get into pinging a minnow or throwing other light baits where you want to get a good cast on it and get it away from you, the boat, whatever. That thinner line casts further, easier. The Beyond Braid, one of the things I did not like about it is it felt like it was sticking to itself and you could feel it on the cast. Now, this J-braid is awesome stuff. And quite honestly, I loved the J-braid for a long time, still do. Okay? It's awesome line. This 20 works very well on a spinning rod for things like shaky head, drop shot, something with a little bit of weight to it. But for throwing the lighter stuff, you start getting down into the thinner lines, and this goes thinner and thinner, right? 0.080 or 020, 187, and 0.171 millimeters on this Siglon. And the reason I got the Siglon was because that's bright as hell. I use the brighter color lines when I'm putting it on rods that I want to be able to line watch. Now, if I'm pinging a minnow, I don't really need to be line watching. So in that case, you may still want a thin diameter, But there's no need to get the bright line. I got the bright line for fishing a Senko and a spinning rod, a Ned rig, a Nico rig, a shaky head, any other sort of weightless wacky, a Jackal flick shake perhaps. The flick shake actually casts pretty good because the worm's pretty heavy, and then you put a real light weight in front of it and it casts pretty good. For that, I really like the Suffix, except you need the brightness to line watch better. I do. I don't see very well. I'm getting up there. Well, you can see I got my spectacles on, right? The X Plasma is great for a while, but it tends to fade away. That said, I haven't changed out the line since I got it. Actually, I think I just recently did, but I had left it on there. The line worked fine, and it did lighten up, so you could still see it on a lot of watercolors. The Suffix you can see pretty well if the water's clear, but if you get a little stain to it or a little color in it even, it disappears and it gets blends with the background of the water, gets harder to see. The orange, I'm hoping, is very, very visible. Now there's one in here that I don't have, and that's the P-line no fade. P-line braid is the one P-line line that I will use. I don't care for their other stuff. Let me preface, I don't care for their mono or copolymers. Okay, I haven't tried their fluorocarbon. I love Sunline fluorocarbon. Don't see a need to change. The secondary one I would use is the Berkeley 100% fluorocarbon. And now I'm off track because we're here talking about braid. So pay attention to line diameter, folks. A little bit more than weight ratings, because I think this one says on it, yeah, 12, but it says a max strength of 19. Well, this is also the thinnest line out of all of these. This 10 is thicker, this 12 is thicker. So pay attention to line diameter, and I'd say the same thing in all line types, but in braid, especially on a spinning rod, you can go down to 6 or 8 pound braid and throw a 12-pound leader and get away with it just fine. It's something the pros are not talking about right now. If you listen to some of the stuff on Bassmaster when they're doing the live shows, a lot of times these guys are throwing 6 or 8 pound braid and they got 12 to 15 pound leaders on their ping and minnows. So if you're wondering how they can horse them so much, that's it, right? 6 pound braid probably has a breaking strength of 12 to 15 pound. And it casts great. So just something to think about when you're spooling up your spinning rods. Spool them up. If you don't need visual line watching techniques, I really believe that it's best to use something that blends green, brown, camo, whatever, right? P-line no fade braid if you want. If you do have line watching techniques and any weightless presentation, yellow, green, and that flaming orange. They should have named it flaming orange instead of orange, because that thing looks like, I mean, that thing's bright, isn't it? So anyway, give it a little thought. I bet you if you do it, it'll get you more bites, right? Whether it's line watching or your techniques where you don't need to line watch, it'll get you more bites, okay? Thanks for watching. Sean the Average Angler We'll see you on the next one.